And welcome back to the Wide League's very first Scarlet and Violet Pokemon tournament. It's been a really interesting one so far. We've seen a lot of things. We've seen a lot of good, a lot of great Masquerada plays, a lot of great Garganacl plays, and I know that's got to excite my next co-host here with me, Savage Patch Kid. How are you doing, Savage?
I'm doing amazingly. Super happy to be here. And you're absolutely correct. I am insanely excited over the huge showing we've had from both Masquerada and Garganacl. I ran them both. They're so much fun to play with. They're two of my favorite mons to come out of Paldea, and I'm really excited that they're getting some good competitive mileage here.
Yes, they certainly are. Now, our next match is against Salty Dolphin and Grand 1023. Let's go ahead and go just flip over to that and check out what we've got going over there. Looks like Salty Dolphin's going to be bringing that Hydreigon and that Meowscarada. There it is, as well as the Skrellige, the Kilowattrel, the Armarouge, and that, for some reason, that name is escaping me right now. Iceberg with it. What do we got over with the Avalug. There we go. Grand 1023. What do we got over on this side?
We also have Hydreigon and Gardevoir on his side, and Armarouge rounding out a trio of some really devastating special attackers potentially here. Paldean Tauros, that looks like that might be the water fighting version. I can't tell. That Smite is really small, but between Tauros, Kingambit, and Mousehold, we also have some pretty thick support options that we may have to deal with on Grand side here. Be really interested to see how we're going to prioritize targeting.
Then that Mousehold is definitely something to fear. One of the new Pokemon that we've seen come in Generation 9, and definitely one to be scared of with both Friend Guard and Technician and Population Bomb, a new move that can hit up to 10 times. Stacking that base power with Technician, with something like a Life Orb, or even like a normal type Terastallization, that thing can be absolutely mean. And that is what we see coming out here, is that Mousehold and Kingambit over here for Grand 23 side. Over on Salty Dolphin, bringing out that Avalug and Hydreigon.
Interesting. Yeah, a Mousehold lead is always really something to be kind of upset about, because, I mean, Mousehold is capable of doing so many different things. I mean, you have a solid support option. You've got a solid physical threat from Population Bomb. It's always really interesting to see what it's going to do when it hits the field, but it is also very unsettling depending on which side you're on.
For sure. And, you know, even something like that Avalug is threatened by that Population Bomb, just because, I mean, like, 10 moves in a row. I mean, it's hard for anything. That's a base power of like 200 just on its own. If it's hitting with that with just normal, not even the Technician boost. And we see the Protect going off here for Hydreigon on Salty Dolphin's side. Gonna keep it safe for another turn. Super Fang going into that Hydreigon is going to miss with that Protect there, keeping it safe. Swords Dance going off for the Kingambit on Grand 23 side, making it much scarier. And Avalug's gonna go for a body press onto the Mouse family, but they're gonna survive with just a sliver of HP. That Berry, though, gonna bring its health back up just a little bit, just about 50%. So Mousehold really hanging in there.
That Mousehold, that Berry coming off, doing some very necessary support to keep that Mousehold on the field. The body press coming out of the Avalug here, I don't think it's ever the first option I ever think of when it comes to using a body press move, but its defense is insanely high. So that coming off into the Mousehold was like really important, I think, as far as making up a little bit of ground here.
For sure. And, you know, it's interesting, the Hydreigon, making sure it stays safe, but now you got to really be scared of anything like potential Brick Break or something like that coming off that Kingambit.
Especially after a Swords Dance.
Especially after a Swords Dance. Yeah, Hydreigon, usually the one that wreaks havoc on the field, but that Kingambit now in a prime position to do so. So we'll see how this next turn unfolds here. You know, the big thing about Hydreigon is its potential with Terastallization, but we're actually going to see it withdrawn back here for Salty Dolphin, and out comes Sweet Tooth, the Skrellige, the shiny Skrellige.
Perfect name. Perfect name.
And we see a Terastallization coming here out of Grand 23. It's going to go into its Kingambit, changing its typing into a flying type, making sure that fighting type weakness, the ground type weakness, all of it neutralized. So now it's got some balloons on its head, as well as that giant sword. And the Terastallization also coming off for Salty Dolphin over here. It's going to go into its Avalug. Of course, we saw the Skrellige just switching in here. That Avalug is actually going to become a fighting type. And that uppercut going right through that Iceberg is quite the spectacle. Protect going to come off for this Mousehold. Keep it safe for yet another turn. And we see the Iron Head coming off of that Kingambit into Avalugg, not doing too much because it's a fighting,
I don't
but the
think so.
flinch is absolutely critical here. So both trainers here going for the terastallization. Very interesting plays.
I like it. We see some very interesting Terra typing choices here. I think for some very, very good defensive calls. I mean, we've got, well, Avalugg, you can potentially maximize your body press damage, but that's also going to eliminate your rock type weakness. And we see Kingambit pulling the flying type card. That's going to eliminate your fighting and your ground type weaknesses. Yeah. So I see some very, very good defensive choices made here for the Terra typing.
Absolutely. We see that withdraw here for that Skrellich. Hydreigon going to come right back out. Superfang going into the Avalugg, going to take out half of its HP, leaving you with just 65% left. That Iron Head will finish it off, and down goes Avalugg. This Kingambit now in a prime position to really put a lot of pressure on Salty Dolphin's side of the field here.
That's true. I definitely Salty definitely has to be feeling a little, well, salty, I suppose, over the loss of that Avalugg. But returning with Meowscarada to eventually make up some very, very serious offensive pressure here.
Yes, absolutely. You got to be concerned, of course, with that Kingambit. I mean, that Kingambit having that Swords Dance, having it and being completely immune to its main biggest weakness, or not immune, but resist its biggest weakness being that fighting type, and now still having that stab on Iron Head and things like Sucker Punch. And honestly, Grand 23 at this point, not losing a single Mon, really got a lot of advantage. Follow Me is going to come off of this Tandem Mouse, going to let it take this next hit as the knockoff comes from Meowscarada into that mouse hold. Draco Meteor will finish it off, though, for that Meowscarada, but a critical special attack drop here on Hydreigon. And not able to terastallize. It's lost a lot of its potential on the attack field for a lot of number of reasons, and fairy types can be a big threat to it. Right now we see the low kick coming off into it, and it is super effective. That +2 Swords Dance really, really coming into effect here. Hydreigon left in a critical position, and Grand 23 took advantage of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. The offensive work that Kingambit is really putting up on this side of the field right now is really, really pulling its weight. That one Sword Stance already proving to be an insanely critical choice on Grand's behalf, and Grand returning fire with his own Hydreigon now that Salties is out of the picture. It's really the potential for us to shift into a one-sided offensive match in Grand's favor seems really, really likely at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, you've got to be concerned with that Skrellich. At least it has the potential to potentially snowball, but it's pretty slow here in this scenario. And, of course, the Hydreigon on the opposing side, we've already seen how much Hydreigon can do. And with Salty's down now, I mean, it's going to be a quite the uphill battle for this Salty Dolphin.
I absolutely agree. Seeing what exactly kind of turnaround we can see out of the Skeledirge, starting with the Protect.
Going to keep itself safe for this turn. Sweet Tooth going for that Protect. Knockoff coming in from this Meowscarada into the Kingambit. It's going to take off that Lumberry, giving it a little bit less of the heals that it really would like to see. Snarl's going to fire off this Hydreigon. It's not really going to do too much to this Meowscarada as a dark type, and not really too concerned with that special attack drop either. Iron Hand is going to go straight into Meowscarada, taking it all the way out. No Focus Sash there to keep it alive. And now it is all up to Skrellich and a prayer. Gonna have to
Sweet Tooth and a Hope, absolutely. That loss of that Meowscarada before it was able to put out any really serious damage, those knockoffs just unfortunately really went pulling their weight as far as coverage was concerned. I mean, we have the loss of the Lumberry, and most importantly, we know that Kingambit has that Lumberry, but you're taking the effort and turns to try and put something to sleep to make up some of this offensive ground just really doesn't seem like the best option here. The Torch Song going into the Kingambit and doing a little bit of damage, but not quite a lot.
That Snarl coming off that Hydreigon earlier, giving it a critical special attack drop, so it's not really even making up much in the snowball department. Of course, looks like a little bit of leftovers here that's going to activate for Sweet Tooth, giving it just a little bit of health back. Probably can get a little bit back more with Protect, but it looks like this is going to be quite the uphill battle. I mean, for Skrellich to be able to sneak off the rest of this team here, it's going to be a big ask. Dark Pulse going to be firing off this Hydreigon into Sweet Tooth. It'll be enough to wrap this one up. And this first match goes to Grand 23.
Exactly. I'm really interested to see what kind of defensive corrections we're going to see on Salty Dolphin's behalf. I thought there was some this once it lost that very very beginning of that war over offensive coverage, and it just couldn't really catch up after that. But I guess the flip side of that is that like if you make the correct team corrections and choice corrections in those first two choices in those first two rounds, um, you're going to be fine. So I'm really interested to see what those corrections might be.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see. I think that you know, one of the things that you have to think about though is for Grand 1023, you know, the flying type terrestrialization for that Kingambit was actually very, very critical, right?
Absolutely.
Now you're kind of losing that surprise factor. Salty can kind of play around that if they have they make the right type advantages there. So it'd be interesting to see how this next match goes. But yeah, the Kingambit here, absolutely the MVP of that last match.
Oh, 100%. Between the terror typing and just how much damage it was able to do after pulling off that successful sword dance, it really, really made up for a whole lot of ground. And it was really terrifying because honestly, we didn't even need to see what it was fully capable of doing. We saw a sword stance and an iron head, and we don't know what that fourth offensive option could be.
Could very well still have a sucker punch. Could still very well have Kodo Cleave. Could have brick break. Could have all kinds of different stuff.
Yeah, so it's like there's still a move slot unaccounted for there, and just knowing that there's a move slot that you don't know about, and there's a King Gambit on the other side of the field, is in a metagame sense actually really unsettling.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's see how round 2 shakes up here as we're starting to look at team preview. We get a little bit better look at things here. It's going to be an interesting choice to see exactly what Salty Dolphin goes for here. Avalug really didn't give them much in that last match. It kind of got taken out pretty early, and I was actually kind of a little bit limiting after using that terrestrialization.
It was a very unfortunate loss of the T-type for sure.
Right, and Sweet Tooth, it seems like it has a lot of potential, but it hasn't been put in the right position to do so. So maybe this is the call to bring Kilowattrel in, probably set up something like Tailwind, or even you know, kind of try to at least take advantage of that King Gambit and at least threaten it from turning into that flying Terra type, right?
Exactly. That would put a lot of pressure on changing that Terra typing option for Grand side, because between the just the sheer electrical damage that Kilowattrel is capable of putting out, on top of being able to set up a Tailwind, that could be the correction that Salty Dolphin needs on that turn 1 to really make this second match go in his favor.
And we'll see how these things go out for both these players. Grand 23, of course, coming off of a pretty strong win in that last match, and a pretty dominant lead there, really putting that Skrellage in the corner, and getting also a lot of data out of that match. I mean, we didn't see anything out of the Kingambit other than that one Iron Head, and it's the same lead for Grand 2023 with that Mouse holding Kingambit, and then coming in for Salty Dolphin, a little bit different this time with the Armorluge Hydreigon lead.
Interesting. Yeah, definitely shifting to a lot more offensive pressure on this opening lead. Armor is just capable of doing just so much damage, and we do have the potential for any sort of like psychic mix-up options as well, because the offensive options for Armor Rouge are actually quite extensive. Like, it's so really interesting. Oh, we do have the Follow Me coming off the mouse hold, so
Follow Me will make it the center of attention, keeping all of those redirects away from Kingambit. Of course, it's likely going for that same Swords Dance again, but of course, going for the spread move here with Hydreigon, gonna hit both slots here and keep Kingambit in the match. Mouse survives by just 1 HP, proccing its berry and keeping it fairly healthy here. About 25% of its health sits right there. Low kick is going to go into Hydreigon and takes it out in one shot. No Swords Dance needed. So some really, really critical plays here by Grand 1023 here. Really just calling that Hydreigon out and be like, you know what? I don't even need the Swords Dance. Just going to go for that low kick right off the bat.
You know, I think this is why you see a lot of Terra typing options for Hydreigon to really cover for those fighting and fairy type weaknesses. Those are the two biggest things you have to really worry about when you're running that mon. And because while it's very, very offensive, it fairly delicate, if at least as far as pseudo legendary dragons are concerned, and now knowing that you don't even need the Swords Dance buff to be able to one-shot that when he has that King Gambit on the field is really, I would be very concerned about that.
Yeah, that is absolutely concerning. And you gotta think that Mousehold again just gonna potentially go for a follow me and keep it safe. It can still set up the same scenarios that it was setting up last time with that Swords Dance, and it's sitting pretty healthy there with that 50% HP, still easily in the green here. Yeah, it's gonna be critical. We'll see how this turn plays out here. Kilowattriel potentially really offering some supportive options. It doesn't have the strongest attack out there, but is very, very fast, and it's got great type advantages. And we see actually the Armarouge is going to Terrasilize into a fighting type. Armarouge really one that you see a lot of unique terrestrializations for, and this being one of them. Protect going off on the Mousehold, going to keep it safe for one turn, making sure it stays alive here. Sucker Punch going to go off into the
critical defensive on
fighting
type.
Yes, but that fighting type going to keep it very much alive. Thunderbolt going to go into Kingambit, not enough to take it out, but is enough to give it a little bit of a paralysis, making sure it goes just a little bit slower. That Lumberry is going to take care of it, that we saw in that last match. As the Aura Sphere fires off from Armarouge, a critical play, and absolutely taking advantage of this new terrestrialization. Very, very impressive plays here by Salty.
Absolutely, that was a great course correction. I think that Thunderbolt was meant for a Terra-typed flying type Kingambit, but it still did a decent amount of damage, enough to help certainly take it off of the field. The fighting type Terra-typing option on Armarouge is actually a really, really solid call. That's going to definitely take care of a lot of potential dark type attacks. We've already seen Snarl on the other side of the field with that Hydreigon that Grant has been running, but also that boost to that Aura Sphere is, I mean, having that additional stab is a lot of damage output to compensate for.
And Grand 23 saying, you can Armarouge, I can Armarouge too, by throwing their own out there. And now you're in a position with Mousehold and Armarouge on the other side of the field. It's not a combo that you like to see. You could always be running that Friend Guard, so that Armarouge on the other side is a little bit bulkier. It's a little bit of a treacherous position if you're Salty.
Absolutely. And Mousehold is one of those mons that whenever you sit on the field, always kind of makes itself the priority target, and if it's not, it should. The follow me pressure really, really proving in this meta to be a just absolutely devastating weapon when it's used against you in the right way.
Yeah, it can really be a force to be reckoned with here. As we see this next turn go through, we see Mousehold is going to come back. Not going to stay on the field for another turn. That Friend Guard now going away, and Hydreigon comes in its place. Tailwind coming off of Kilowattriel is going to make sure that this Armarouge has the speed advantage that it needs, and Aura Sphere is going to fire off from this Armarouge into that Hydreigon, and it's not going to like to take that. It only takes it down to about 50% HP, but that is not a good spot to be in if you are Hydreigon. Psychic's going to fire off into that Armarouge. It does not like to take that as a fighting type. So Armarouge there getting a little taste of its own medicine and going down to that, but a critical tailwind here for Salty, and we have Meowscarada in the back. Do you think Meowscarada can sweep up the rest of this team?
Really depends on what we're able to pull out of Meowscarada's toolkit here, but there's definitely some potential, especially now that you have that tailwind up, to really, really make up some ground here. Kilowattriel is honestly the one I would be most worried about at this point, because its damage output is unfortunately not going to be the highest on the field, and at the same time it might be the fastest thing, but it's already set the tailwind. So what utility do you really have left from that mon? I'd be really interested to see how it's able to complement what Meowscarada is capable of. But Meowscarada, I think it was a little bit disappointing to see how little damage that Aura Sphere did by comparison. Yes, it did 50% HP, but I think you were maybe hoping a little bit more there. But really interesting to see just how Meowscarada can clean up here, because you have dark type coverage to go against the Armarouge, and potential answer to maybe whatever we see Grand switching in here.
And we see the switch in, and it is back to Mousehold for Grand 2023. We see a terrestrialization coming off of Grand 2023, and everyone loves to terrestrialize Armarouge. We see that here with the Grass typing, one of my personal favorites to use on Armarouge. Makes it immune to powders. It can also take advantage of some things in his move pool like Energy Ball. Hurricane is going to come off into and it's going to be avoided. Knockoff coming off of Meowscarada is not going to do too much, but it does take off its safety goggles. Trick Room is going to go off for Armarouge, making that tailwind advantage disappear.
Absolutely. The Trick Room absolutely just completely wiping any sort of hope of speed control you were going to have over this match, and the exact opposite direction. Really not a great position for Salty Dolphin to wind up in after that turn. But that being said, Meowscarada can still hit really, really hard, and also opt for the defensive option as well to keep itself on the field.
And that's exactly what it does with the Protect here. We see the Armor Cannon firing off of Armarouge. It's going to go right into that Kilowattrel, and it will take it out in one shot. Now it is up to Meowscarada and a Hope, and that is a rough break here for Salty. Even if we see Mousehold here go for something, going to go for the Super Fang. Still not gonna really do anything against the Protect here, but now Meowscarada in a Trick Room, not the place it likes to be, especially with a Tailwind behind it.
Absolutely not.
It may be able to get off some Sucker Punches here, but that's going to be its best bet, really.
I mean, and at this point, Follow Me is your worst enemy if you're trying to Sucker Punch.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we see here. We see the Follow Me Armor Cannon's going to go off into the Meowscarada, likely a sashed Meowscarada, and it is. We see that sash go off, and that's going to put it in a critical position here. Of course, Flower Trick probably is going to be enough to take out this Mousehold. Definitely more than enough to take out this Mousehold.
Absolutely, for sure.
But you absolutely have the advantage here if you're Grand Twin 23.
100%. The Tailwind loss, not the worst thing in the world considering you're trapped in a Trick Room, but Meowscarada is really going to have to get really lucky on some of these calls and some of this decisions that it's going to make in these next two turns to have a hope with only that 1 HP. Sucker Punch going into the Armarouge.
And it's not enough to take it out. Armor Cannon will wrap this up. We see the animation going, so we know it's going to hit. There's only 1 HP left, so there's only one outcome here for the Salty Dolphin. And that will be a clean 2-0 for Grand 1023.
Absolutely. Congrats to both players. That was a really, really impressive showing on Grand's offensive pressure there. Really, no one wants to be in a situation as like Salty Dolphin was, where unfortunately the first two games you pretty much lose your major offensive pressure within your first turn or two. That's a lot of ground to have to make up. But overall, I think Mousehold showing just how viable it can be, and a surprising show from King Gambit as well. I figured you would really like to see that.
Oh yeah, of course I love to see that. The Swords Dance right off the bat there. I mean, that put that King Gambit in a absolutely dominant position, and I don't think it was even brought for that second match, right? We saw a completely different cast of characters there in that second match, and the Armarouge, the terrestrialization on both sides, Armarouge, absolutely critical here. Salty Dolphin taking advantage of that fighting type, which does counter a lot of its weaknesses and can take advantage of Aura Sphere. But I mean, we saw Armarouge on the other side using that grass type terrestrialization to say, hey, I don't even need my safety goggles anymore. Don't worry about it, you know? And getting rid of that psychic typing, most importantly, so that knockoff can't take out in one turn. That was pretty clutch.
Yeah, it was a great defensive. Grass Terra typing is proving in this meta to just show itself as a really, really good defensive option for things like powder immunity and just being able to shift over your type resistances at the drop of a hat.
Which is interesting for one of the types that has like one of the most weaknesses, but yes, it absolutely has so much defensive viability.
I'm a grass type stan. I really can't be mad about it. I really can't. But further to your point, I think offensively it definitely yields itself maybe a little bit better than the fighting type choice did, because I think typing aside, I think offensively Energy Ball is just a little bit better of an option for Armarouge than Aura Sphere, with the potential for your special defense drops, and I believe the base power is a little bit higher as well. So having those options, I think, are actually really, really important. But the shout out really being Armarouge's versatility.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Really, really great picks, great matches. Yeah, that'll do it for us for round 5, but stay tuned, guys. We've got another round coming up next year. Round 6 is right around the corner. Stay tuned. We got more Wide League coming up here, and we'll be back in a bit.
It'd be great.